but here you found a safer place. You're not alone, we're standing by your side, helping you through every twist in the ride. With knowledge, care, and a voice that's true, the Disability Digest is here for you.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So, whether you are joining us live today or watching the replay later, we are glad that you are here. And as we go through today's discussion, feel free to share your thoughts and questions in the chat. And we will also be posting the Zoom link later during the event for anyone who would like to join us live and ask their question directly during the Q&A portion of today's discussion. So for those of you who may be new, my name is Nadine. I work as an advocate here at the Disability Digest. And of course, joining us today, our very own founder and CEO, Mr. Brian Therrien. And we are also joined by Philip Price, who leads one of the most supportive Facebook community for people navigating the disability process. And joining as our special guest for today is Salla Vastila, founder of Ainoa. Ainoa is a branding studio that helps businesses understand what makes people choose one brand over another, using psychology and research about how people actually think and make decisions. So their company then builds the brand strategy, messaging, and look based on that. And Ainoa is also a disability confident employer, which means that they are committed to fair hiring and supporting disabled people in the workplace. And today's conversation, especially meaningful, is that Salah also has personal experience navigating significant health challenges and rebuilding after those experiences change the course of her life. So at this point, I'd like to turn things over to Brian to help set the stage for today's conversation. Brian, I'll hand it over to you.
Yes, thank you. Excited for today. Sharing my screen. And if you look at the brand colors on this website from Salla and you look at the brand that Salla is wearing, you'll get an idea of like hopefully the direction that we're going today is to take you from wherever you're at and to help you get some real life concepts to rebrand yourself, because when you have a sickness or an injury, for most people, life changes. Your work changes, finances changes, oftentimes relationships get hit hard. So we are excited to take the experience that is used not only personally, you'll hear Sala's story, but what Salah does and companies pay thousands of dollars for, including our very own Disability Digest. This look and feel is based on the research that Salah's team did in understanding you, our audience, and connecting you to the work that we do. So I am super excited for today's event. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yes, or having you back, I should
Yeah.
say. This is your second appearance.
Yes.
Hopefully second of many. Where I would like to start is to give the audience some context of what your life was like prior to having sickness, injury. You shared a little snippet of this with me, but I'm sure there's some gaps in there. I want people to understand like the real challenges that you've been through and the remarkable work that you've been able to do despite your challenges.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Happy to reshare my story a little bit. It is messy. It was a lot of struggle. So I have a long history with physical and mental health conditions. I got multiple overlapping diagnoses, and what really changed for me was around 2020. First, I got sick. Most likely it was COVID. We don't know because it was the early stages of COVID, so nobody knows. And after that, I got mysterious infection that spread around my neck, and I thought that I'm going to die. It was that bad. I called an ambulance when I almost fainted and I couldn't breathe. And basically, they told me to call back when I stopped breathing. And I have no idea how I was able to do that all alone.
Hold on. How can you call back if you stopped breathing?
I know, right? Yeah, it was horrible situation. I
Oh,
was genuinely scared for my life. And what followed from that, after that, slowly, I started to get brain fog. I became more and more sensitive to light, severe fatigue. I started almost fainting from mental or physical effort. I got severe chronic pain that tied me to use bathroom unassisted on my worst days. I couldn't hold a cup.
oh
My
my.
partner, for example, had to, physically feed me and, help me if I couldn't do that unassisted. So my life turned completely upside down. And at the same time, before I got sick, I was dealing with a severe burnout from 9 to 5, where I lost all my professional confidence. So there's a lot of things that were going on. And what made it really frustrating for me personally was that before I got sick, I was a fitness girl. I went to the gym 6 times a week minimum. I ran 10 miles every Sunday. It was a massive change to my personality and my self-image, and I felt that I lost myself completely. Myself in the mirror. I got very
Oh,
depressed. One from the early days. I honestly didn't know if I would ever feel like myself ever again. So that was a starting point over changed everything for me.
some of this was a little choppy. I want to go back through just so the audience understands some of the key parts. I feel they're the key parts. So it could have been brought on by COVID. We don't quite know. And at the time that all of this happened in 2020, you were in really good shape. You had aspirations to do something other than what you're doing now, right? Yeah. Uh, and so as a result of this, similar to what I expect others experience, as your health took a hit, it limited your ability to do what you were used to doing, like 6 days a week, working out. Thus, your identity and what you were
Yeah.
connected to and your feeling about yourself was compromised.
Yes.
Okay.
I changed my microphone output. I hope this is better now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the chop has gone away. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, let's continue. I just wanted to make sure that everybody can hear me.
Yep. Yep. Loud and clear.
Lot better, lot better.
Great, thank
Good.
you.
Good. Um, all right. So we're at the point in your journey, shall I say, where your health was compromised. Is it right to fast forward to like where did this whole concept come from of pursuing like um a business and what you have done with Ainoa? And I think also another thing that would be helpful to understand for the audience was, did you wake up and go from, zero to this, or were there practical steps in between that led you into this?
Yeah, so I didn't magically just wake up one day and, was suddenly able to do things like I used to be and suddenly just realized who I am. It was step by step, and some days were good and some days were really, really bad. I really struggle. I would say like first few years were extremely difficult for me, and it took some time for me to get to know myself. Two major things that helped me, especially at the early stages, was grieving and allowing myself to grieve that I'm no longer the person who I was before I got sick. You probably
Yes.
heard of if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I felt that was, on bad days, all I could do was just look at the lemons. And it felt really awful because I pressured myself and I felt that society was pressuring me to get back in shape and get, back who I was before. So, when I realized that I need to grieve first the person who I used to be, that lifted huge weight off my shoulders. So what helped me was therapy and allowing myself to feel all of those feelings. I cried a lot, I screamed into the void and things like that that really helped me. And then the second thing that happened the same time is that the diagnosis, it can be relief. For me, at least, it was because it validated that I'm not crazy. And, there's a name for my symptoms and what it was. Back then, the diagnosis was chronic fatigue syndrome. The thing is that we still don't know what it is. It could be fibromyalgia, it could be something else entirely. But the diagnosis is not who you are. It only describes symptoms, not you as a person. So my method was that I started with a simple list of things that other people have said about me, and I knew that were still true, like I'm kind, I'm caring, I'm curious. So those things weren't gone, even if I'm no longer able to go to the gym 6 days a week or run 10 miles in a weekend. So that was kind of like the base where I started. And then from there, I started building little by little. Okay, I'm still curious. So what am I curious about right now? I can still learn new things and so on. So um, it doesn't really have to be big the first few steps because, like I said, why life gives you lemons and you might not be able to make the lemonade at first. So it's just okay just to stop and look at the lemons. that's that's
Yeah.
what I would say.
This is so good. I mean, the grieving part, especially, I I'm not really good at this, but I think that it's definitely practical where you take time to, sit on the couch and eat a bag of Doritos and like just, get it, have your time, however
Yeah.
long that might be. And then the second thing is the list. So I think this is practical for anybody. You take a list of who you are because we're always evolving with changes, right? Um, so now how did you, I mean, okay, then there was a therapy piece. And so there's a few things going on, but if somebody was like fresh into like the first week of this, what would their first week, or maybe they're here and they haven't had any like concept or really have known how to move forward. Like what would that look like for somebody? Can you paint a picture?
Right. So I'm just gonna go back to the list thing as well. So
Hmm.
you can
Hmm.
ask your friends and family of feedback who you are today. How would they describe you? And you can extend the list by adding things that what I'm good at now. What things are still true now. Don't go back to what I was able to do before because that won't lead to anything good. So
Hmm.
focus on
Hmm.
what I can do today and then also what I'm interested in today. So I made those kind of lists, who I am as a person, what I'm able to do. And at the beginning, the list was very simple. It was, I'm able to make breakfast. While that still isn't true on every day, I know that that's still something that I'm able to do. And then little by little, what you can do is then you can start collecting data. Last time I talked about spoon theory, that I'm a huge fan of. So you can
Mm-hmm,
start
mm-hmm.
collecting data on your list that, okay, I am able to make breakfast on a good day. This takes me 1 spoon. On a bad day, it takes 3. You can use minutes, you can use whatever you want. In you can keep building this list, and then you have a really good sense of who you are today. I know it can feel like a lot to keep this kind of diary or list, but for me, it was incredibly helpful because every time I was having a bad day, I could go back at my list and remind myself that I'm still kind, I'm still caring, I'm a great friend, I'm still able to go for a walk on good days. So, my life isn't over because that's how it can feel like on those worst days. So that was helpful for me.
Yeah, so this it's the starting of the rebranding process is identifying things that you still can do. And if somebody's out there in the audience, this is a real life example. There's somebody that is bedridden and has memory challenges, and it's a very distinct conversation from a few years ago. And she said, I can still participate in working through Centers for Independent Living and calling people that are homeless, but somebody's got to bring her the list because she doesn't remember. And then she calls and she just checks on them. So, I mean, even at a very unfortunate level, something could be done. So, all right. So these are good rebranding steps. So the journaling piece, right? You want to identify what it is that you can do. And I am, for those of you that have been out here listening to our work, journaling is always talked about. It's a necessary part of getting and keeping your benefits is to journal. So having this is really in flow with what people should be doing anyway, is journaling. Um, any unique examples of things that you did that maybe would relate to others? Like maybe here's another way to look at it. Are there things that you discovered through the journaling process that were effective that perhaps you wouldn't have realized before? Like you gave the example of breakfast. Were there others?
Um, like I said, it was like journey to myself. And I also, what was really good for me when after I was able to grieve and after I was able to slowly build this list is try new things, So you can pick up a new hobby or something that, you might haven't tried before.
Hmm.
So, it's really a journey in yourself. I, for example, started reading books again, quite a lot of them. So that was something that I was still able to do when it wasn't like a totally terrible day. Now, that doesn't maybe sound like a lot for somebody who doesn't have any kind of disability. Is that okay, you're reading books, so what? But for me, that meant a lot. I also eventually went back to university and I studied, and that brought a lot of joy for me because like my identity was the fitness person, having a good job. I was very social, outgoing, all of those kind of things. So I wasn't able to do that anymore, but I was able to reconnect with my joy of learning new things through the value that I am curious. So learning new things was really a lifesaver for me, especially on a bad days. On bad days, I couldn't even pick up a book, but listening to podcasts, you can still maybe do that. Like eyes
Right.
covered in the dark room, you can still put that on play. It doesn't matter, but that was truly like mind blowing for me. It really changed a lot for me.
Mm. Yeah, I believe everybody should have a commitment to learning throughout their life. It gives, for me anyway, it's a connection to that sense of purpose. And is that what you felt like? I'm doing something. I'm moving. I'm going forward. Um, I'm wondering, especially with like chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia type conditions. The what I've learned from others in the work that we've done is you can overdo it, all right, and then there's a recovery period. How did you learn to balance that? Did you like push it to the threshold consistently to see how you could do more and more, or know when to back off? What from your experience would you advise others?
Yeah, so I think we are all more or less guilty of just doing the crash and burn cycle. Unfortunately, that seems to be part of the learning cycle for most of us. And yeah, that's again, that's part of the discovery here. So unfortunately, that cannot be avoided, but you can take notes from that. Okay, what did I do that, pushed me over the edge? Was it, okay, going through everything that you did? Okay, I did dishes today. I called a friend. I went for a walk. Maybe that was too much, so I can try less activities next time. And then again, the data collection, maybe utilizing the spoon theory or your own model, learning to know your limits. Like, okay, I can have a conversation with my friend, but it's very draining for me. It's going to take 3 spoons of my energy or whatnot. So having that sort of data really helps you, to balance out your days, and then just really trying to pace it. Unfortunately, that's, the best and most boring advice I can give to anybody, is that if you have a bigger task, try to chop it into smaller tasks. Like, for example, doing laundry. If you look at it, it actually has multiple steps. Collecting the clothes is the one step. Putting everything into the washer and putting that on, that's already a step 2. Step 3, taking the laundry out of the washer and then putting it to dry. So that alone has already multiple stages. Could you maybe try to do 2 of those stages and then check back in? How am I feeling right now? Am I still within my limits? Do I need to take a break, or so on? So it really is little things, and really just learning. It's trial and error, unfortunately. But yeah, so I think, like I said, everybody does that crash and burn cycle at least a couple of times. Would love to have some kind of concrete tips to this, but I feel that it's part of the journey. You do it accidentally, whether you like it or not. But try to pace yourself. Try to do a little bit less, and accept that you don't need to do everything at once. Like, it is confusing, especially with this kind of energy limiting condition, when before you were able to do the whole wash cycle in one go, right? And all of a
Hmm.
sudden you cannot. So pace yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, made me think about my laundry. Unfortunately, has an additional step where I pour it all into a chair when it's done in my bedroom, and I look at it for a couple of days before I decide to take
Yeah,
action. I don't recommend that one. I
yeah.
have really no excuses not to do it.
No, I think we're all guilty of that sometimes. Me too.
Yeah. On the spoon analogy that you're using, in your understanding of the explanation, how many spoons would an able-bodied person have at like full speed?
I have no idea. That's actually a really great question. I
Yeah.
have no idea. I have shared my day roughly to 10 spoons. And then later on I moved to use a bit more advanced type. So I use time blocking. So
Yeah.
what I do during my work day is that I know that, for example, writing an email takes me, with breaks, if I'm not feeling good, it can take me 1 hour to get it done, including the breaks. And if I have extra time, that's great. That means that I'm able to finish earlier. I can put something else in my daily agenda if I still have energy. If
Hmm.
not, that's okay. Um, but yeah, regarding the able-bodied person, I honestly have no idea, because before I felt I had all the spoons probably in the world. I felt like if I had to compare, I had a full drawer that was just full of spoons. I was able
Yeah.
to do so much, And I was constantly going, I was outgoing, seeing my friends, going to gigs, museums, eating, gym. I woke up super early. I did 9 to 5 work like normal people. And if you compare it to what I have now, there's a drastic difference. So I have no idea how much like an average able-bodied person, like how many spoons they would have, but I would say a lot more than 10.
Yeah, I like 10 though, because if you reduce it, like, okay, let's say as an able-bodied person, you have 10, right? And so your life changes and you have limitations now, and maybe you're down to 7. That's pretty, right? So you're missing 30%, so you have to adjust um, your lifestyle. Actually, the person who came up with the spoon concept, it's been a while, but she's actually a member here at the Disability Digest. And it's available out there online, but let's call it 10 for today. Next question on reaching your threshold. There's a social media guy out there who totally fascinates me, David Goggins, who has a book, You Can't Hurt Me, as well as other stuff. I don't know if you know his work. But he's a hard charging Navy SEAL, which is high level military here in the US. And his whole thing is humans operate for the most part at 40% of their capacity. They and they don't push beyond that, but when they do push beyond that, the human body is capable of doing more than they believe they can. So I want to pivot that into, does that make sense? And as a general strategy, did you find that, you know what, I know I hit the wall and it wiped me out, but I'm gonna do it again, or did you try to stay below that threshold?
Yeah, so I also have ADHD. I got the diagnosis a few years ago. So for me, it's very difficult sometimes, especially if the task is very interesting or fun. I really enjoy it. So I keep pushing myself and I keep ignoring limits. What I have tried is I tried timers and hard stops, and I even built myself a small program that runs on my Google Calendar that sends me daily check-ins on how am I doing, what I'm working on, what are my energy levels and stuff like that. So it sends me this kind of pop-ups, so I learn to stop. But sometimes I just get very hyper-focused on something that I really enjoy, and I keep ignoring my limits. That's like a guilty habit of mine. And I feel that at that point, I'm operating like at 110% instead of the 40%. And then I
Got it.
pay the price, unfortunately.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
but I had to learn to work with my limitations. Like on some days, my work days look a bit different. Like in the morning, I check emails and then I'm not able to do anything else. And then towards end of the evening, I have less pain and I feel more awake. Let's say like 9 p.m. and I feel like working. That's when I work. And I might do 4 hours of work, for example, at the night. I can't do that as self-employed. It's so much easier that way. But yeah, so that's then my maximum. But I keep going, unfortunately, in these phases. And sometimes I just, again, it goes to crash and burn where I put in 110% instead of the 40% to catch up with things.
Hmm. Well, they say ADHD is a superpower. There's many very successful people, including yourself, um, that have this. So that is one way to look at it. It's speaking of that, we talked about tasks related, like steps that people can take by grieving and assets and all that. Is there anything that you can speak to about the mindset shift? And I think what I'm kind of where I'm going with this is part of the mindset shift, if there is one, recognizing the things that you cannot do and setting firm boundaries with those, or are there other aspects of that perhaps would be helpful that you know and can share?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's equally important to be able to recognize the things that you cannot do. that's super important as well. But if you are at the early stages, like you just got diagnosis or thinking that, oh, maybe I have chronic fatigue or similar condition, I know personally how dragging it is to be stuck in this kind of grieve and feeling awful of what you lost, what you no longer can do. So, especially at the early stages, for me, it was more helpful to focus on what I can do instead of what I used to be able to do or what I cannot do. Because it started to feel incredibly crushing to think about, oh, I no longer can run 10 miles on a Sunday morning. So I focused instead on a Sunday, I can take a 1 mile walk on a good day, for example. So that was more helpful for me. And then later on, I was able to, through trial and error, crash and burn, to recognize that, oh, maybe I cannot take 5 mile walks anymore. Maybe that's my limit. So,
Yeah,
it's a trial
off
and
the
error.
list. Yeah.
Yes.
Note to self in the diary, no more 5 milers.
Yes. But
Yeah.
that might change as well because, especially with the chronic fatigue kind of conditions, you never know. Like for me as well, I noticed that I might have periods when I'm in a really good place, things are really good. And then again, there might be like a dip that I cannot do absolutely anything at all. So
Hmm.
it's you just really have to get to know yourself. But I would
Hmm.
start with the good things, focusing on who I am still today, what I can do, and then later on add things that I cannot do at the moment, at least.
Okay. All right. I want to go back to something that you mentioned. I'm a proponent of counseling therapy. It's been incredibly helpful for me, in my life, and I heard you mention it. Is there a specific takeaway if somebody's doing counseling or therapy now? Is there a way that they should adjust what they're doing or make sure that they're using their therapy to help them with this process? That's maybe a tough one to answer, but I thought I'd ask anyway.
No, I think this is a great question because, like, it's all about finding the right therapist for you. You really have to, find a good match for you. Like, you might get recommendations for a therapist or whatever, but I really recommend you to take those introductory meetings or like have a trial session and then just take notes. How did this make me feel? And then sort of have like a expectations with therapy before you go. What am I looking for from this therapy? What would be actually helpful for me? Would it be helpful to go through what happened to me? Because becoming chronically ill can be trauma itself. Would it help for me to go through that in therapy? That could be one thing. Or would it more helpful for me to focus on my resources, where I want to be, helping the therapist to figure out where I want to be? Would it be CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, where I learn to reframe my thoughts and
Ooh,
shape how I think about things, or um, other helpful tools like that. So have an idea of what are you ideally looking to get from therapy? What would be helpful for me? And it's also good to ask that from your therapist during the introduction sessions like, here's what I've been through. Here's what I feel would be helpful for me. As a professional, what else do you think would be helpful for me? So just an ask, because the therapist is a professional. So they definitely should be able to give you some kind of recommendations and ideas. And then after the session, just think how you feel about the therapist and their methods, and so on. But yeah, I love therapy as well, and a huge
yeah.
supporter of that.
I mean, I have been through, I don't know, probably seven different ones. And I remember some of the early ones I didn't know better. And I'm sharing this because maybe you've had this experience where I would go and I'm looking for like somebody to push me, solution orientated things to try. And you'd have these sessions, and then they would look at you with like 1 minute left and they go, well, how does that make you feel?
Yeah. Yeah,
Makes
I
me
cannot.
feel like shit. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand that that can be helpful
Yeah,
to some people. Absolutely. For me, it's definitely not helpful at all. In my latest therapy as well, after 2 sessions, I just decided that this therapy just isn't for me. We're just wearing a match,
yeah.
and that's okay.
It's like dating, really. That's how I look at it.
Yeah,
You have to find the right personality that's going to click with you. And when you leave, like the emotional feeling of, oh, we're getting somewhere, right?
yeah, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I wish that for everybody. Um, Boy, we've covered some good stuff. A few more things I want to go through with you. Ideally, what we would like to do, and Philip has said this in some of our other work, is for people to do something, is to people for people to take action. Um, and but I believe there's two things that are the barriers here. One is confidence, and one is potential flare-ups. And if you're thinking about not doing something because you're going to like jeopardize your benefits, that's hocus pocus. Stay tuned for another show about that. Um, but how should somebody approach the balance, or more as a recap, like for getting started as we kind of wind down here, so that they have a realistic, high probability of making this work? Okay, we talked about the grieving,
Yes.
right? Uh, like inventory of your assets and what you can do. For me, conceptually, is what you should not and cannot do so you don't bump into those boundaries. Yeah. Um, and what else can we roll into there for practical steps for people? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, so I want to touch upon the topic we talked about last time. It's a great episode. Go check it on YouTube. I'm advertising my other previous YouTube episode here on the Disability Digest channel. We talked about the power of why. That is incredibly powerful. So figure out what is your why. Why, what is the reason why you keep on going, why you keep on pushing? It can be something small, but if you can make it big, that actually would be better. For me, my why, for example, is Ainoa and what we are building together as a team. Because Ainoa started from like a spark of rebellion, where I burned out in my previous workplace. I just realized that that kind of 9 to 5 model doesn't work. And especially with my limitations that came on play afterward really made me think is that we have to do things differently because there are so many talented people in our team as well. A huge majority of our team has some kind of disability. Um, so how can we build a workplace that is actually truly inclusive, that fits around your condition? So that is, for example, my why. When I'm having a really tough time, I think about that, I have to keep on going because of everything that we are building. So I'm building something bigger than myself. So that is my why. But on bad days, when things are really bad, my why can be just that I'm gonna push through so I can go for my walk and enjoy the nature. That can be your why on bad days, and that's enough.
Hmm.
But figuring out what you want to do, why you exist beyond money or any like status or anything like that, what keeps you going really helps.
Wow, that's really good. Really good. And I wish that for everybody. I mean, one of my objectives is to never have to retire, right? So I can keep working because I truly do love what I do most days. Not everything, not all times. But I perhaps you're the same way, Salah, right? With what you're doing. I mean, you're one of the few that I could say that actually is like jazzed about what they're doing. Yeah.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah. So on that note, what I would like to do now is kind of fill in the gap. So we talked about like how it started, like your health and how it declined and how you started to rebuild yourself, but we haven't quite gotten into the like what brought you to this high profile, beautiful business that you run now and the great work that you and your team do.
Right. Okay. That's actually a good point. So it really just came from the lists, what I'm good at, what I'm still good at today,
Okay.
regardless of my condition. I had a background in graphic design. I started a first marketing company when I was 18, 19 years old. I've been freelancing since I was 15, 16 years old. I worked my entire life. And the curiosity of learning, I had a degree in psychology, I had some entrepreneurial studies. So it was really just, going back to my list, what am I still good at? Who am I still today? And just combining those things and then building on them. Like, as I mentioned, I went back to university. I went to online university, which was significantly easier for me because I was able to study whenever I wanted. I didn't need to go to actual physical classes, which was a big thing for me. But yeah, it really just went back to what I am today, who I am today, and what skills I still
Beautiful.
have, what skills I can learn. For example, if you are good at writing, that's something you could still do. Maybe you could write a book, maybe you could write an article if you cannot write a book. For example, there are companies who actually pay money for you to write those articles. And then on top of that, if that's something you're passionate and you can still do that, you can learn about SEO, so optimizing for search engines and so on. So you can level up your skills. And you can still do that if your condition allows, of course, um, with your limitations. If you really learn to listen to yourself and not constantly get stuck in the
Ooh,
crash and burn cycle. But
that's
you can
good.
build from who you are today. You can build on top of that little by little. So that's really, I just basically went back on drawing board.
Yeah, that's really good. I actually want to come back to that for a bit, but we're going to get into the FAQ here in a minute. Nadine, what I would like for you to do is just give before I ask my next and last official question, is just give the audience a shout out and directions and how they can enter their FAQ and we can get some questions asked and answered.
Yeah, sure. So you can put in your question in the chat box right now, and I'm also posting a link for those of you who would like to join us live and ask your questions live with us. And before I ask the questions that we prepared for Salah and the questions that we have here from the audience, Philip, do you have any questions from your group?
But before we turn to Philip, I just have
Oh,
one more question I want to go over with Sola, and then
oh, sure.
we'll turn to Philip.
Sure.
Sorry to cut you off. Philip, one more minute,
It's
please. All right with
Mhm.
that? Okay. So you are one of the few people that has a business where you have individuals that have limitations, like the Disability Digest. So I don't know who else I could do an interview with actually that has a comparable business model in that sense. So I want to take, I want to take advantage of this moment. For those that are listening out there, they're like, okay, well, this is all well, fine, and maybe they haven't started the rebranding, and this is the direction that they want to go. What tips or steps do you have for people that have the ambition to return to some type of productive work?
Um, well, I think it really depends where you are in your journey. If you just recently got your diagnosis or you're in a really bad place, maybe that's something that you need to revisit like later on. But you can still think of, what I would like to do. It goes again, I'm gonna take out my list. It goes back to what
Yes.
I would like to do and then what I'm good at. And I'm a huge advocate for conscious use of AI tools. So, for example, you can take an AI tool, there are free AI tools, for example, and you can put your list there if you want to. And AI can also help you to figure out what you could do with your skills, what is still doable, especially if you have data of your limitations, like what does a good day look like for you? What does a bad day look like for you? And then the list of what you're good at, the skills, it can be little skills like, okay, I'm a good listener. I can write notes. I'm a good note taker, for example. I can send emails. Then maybe you could become a virtual assistant, for example. So there are like a lot of career options there, especially now in the time and era of internet, that you could potentially look into. So I do recommend, if you absolutely want to, if you don't want to do that by yourself, you can utilize AI to help to figure out what is that you could do. But it really depends on where you are in your own journey. Like for me, especially at the beginning in 2020, it was just raw survival. Like I never knew how my next hour is going to look like. I was in that bad condition. So it really changed really fast. Now I'm rather good place with my conditions, so I'm able to set daily plans, for example. I'm usually able to stay on track with those. I can usually set out my week, but I still have to review by day by day. So it really depends where you are with your journey. But take out those lists and, start, you know, go back to the drawing board and start drawing those connections and seeing what skills and what of your interests could overlap. But honestly, just take your time to learn about yourself, your condition, your limitations.
That's well said. What I like about the approach that you outlined is that if one has a list and they're journaling and they're participating in activities, learning new activities, then they are starting to put themselves in an activity process that could emulate work, right? So before you go from like 0 to 100, in my opinion, as an able-bodied person, this would help you have the confidence that, all right, I've been doing something productively for 3 hours a day for
Mm,
a year because of my list that I had. So now I think I could do that, right?
yeah,
That's what I like about it.
yes,
Very,
absolutely.
very good. Well, this has been great. All right, let's transition into some FAQ. Nadine, over to you.
Yep. So once again, before I turn over the microphone to Philip, just a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions or want to share something, share your thoughts, you can always put them in the chat. And I also posted a link for those of you who would like to join us live and ask their questions. All right. So, Philip, any questions before I ask questions from the audience?
Sure. I want to get started with a question from myself to Salla. As Brian had mentioned earlier, I am on disability myself, and I started out as a carpenter 40-something years ago. And my whole life, that's all I've ever done was a construction business. And I have 3 sons. All 3 sons are in the construction business. So when I became disabled and was trying to figure out what I was going to do, I didn't know anything else but how to be a carpenter. So I luckily hooked up with Brian, and Brian got me started as an advocate because of my conditions and being able to relate to other people. And from that, I've also started I didn't start a Facebook group, I inherited a Facebook group that deals with all the issues that disabled people go through when they're trying to get approved or even after approval. And I run into a lot of people in the Facebook group that face some of the challenges that you have faced yourself. So have I. I guess my question is, with the Facebook group, I have a problem not a problem, but some hurdles to overcome when it comes to answering their questions on what they need to do to rebrand themselves, to figure out what they can do. I know what I had to do, and I really didn't have a choice. I had to figure it out all by myself. Like I said, my three sons are all in construction work, so I couldn't go to them and say, hey, what's your advice on me doing a Facebook group for disabled people? You know, they didn't have that kind of knowledge. So what would be your advice for someone that's in our position that, you know, is not sure how they want to tackle the issue of rebranding themselves? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think, yeah, so there are a lot of, well, self-help books. There's a lot of material on Google. Obviously, I also think that your resources are a really good start. You have a lot of good blog articles, like on spoon theory, for example. You have a YouTube channel. You have an amazing community. So I think that kind of like a peer support could be like a good stepping stone. Talking to other people who have gone through the same thing, like joining a community could be a good starting point if you are still unsure who you are or where you need to go. Just find like-minded people. That could be even your like first step if like reinventing yourself or rebranding yourself feels like a too much. I think um like especially for me at the early stage, it was incredibly helpful to be part of certain Facebook communities as well, where I could read, you know, comments and stories for other people that I am not alone. I didn't participate as much in those conversations, but that was the first stepping stone for reinventing myself. And that again, that goes back to sort of like grieving, you know, accepting that I'm no longer able to do certain things or so on. But I think, yeah, if you're not ready to fully reinvent yourself or don't know where to start, find like-minded people, listen to people's stories. Like, example, if you're here today, you have heard my story, and hopefully you've gotten some out of this session, inspiration or whatever it is, like a small takeaway. That can be then your first step.
Yeah,
Good
that's
question.
part of or in my Facebook group. There's a lot of people in there that are asking that question. You know, what is it? Or they talk among themselves, and then I'll try to help them with the answers also. And it seems to be that in the Facebook group, they really rely on other people's views and experience going through the process. So yeah, it definitely helps a lot. And
Yeah.
it's helped me a lot too. That
Yeah.
is my therapy. It's going on my Facebook group and reading their comments.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're how they get approved, and after they're approved, you know, their excitement in it once they're approved. That, you know, it's a burden off their shoulder to know that they've got something they can rely on. All right, we've got one question here in the Facebook group that for today, and then I'll turn it over to Nadine. It's kind of a long one, so just bear with me. Said, I need some advice. I have MS and have been seriously contemplating applying for Social Security disability benefits, and I have an appointment with my neurologist soon. I know a huge part of the SSDI application process is relying on your doctors to agree that you cannot work. How can I explain to my neuro that I need his support and I need his support in my applying? My symptoms have been getting worse, memory loss, memory issues, cognitive decline. I can't walk, stand for more than 10 minutes. Sitting hurts my back and my legs and feet hurt after a while, as they are numb all the time. Among many other symptoms, I am worried that I'm not bad enough compared to others who have MS, and I worry I don't have his support and will have to continue to struggle in my daily life. I just don't know how to say more than I am applying to SSDI to better my life and mentally, physically, medically, and I need your support. And through this, what were your conversations with your doctors about your needing to apply for SSDI to better your lives? That was long.
Yes, so I think Brian can definitely fill in how this is going in States because it's probably much different. I've gotten disability benefits in Finland, where I'm from, and the process was incredibly long, difficult, and painful. And it also included me collecting the data, having diaries, written diaries of my day, like symptoms and everything. I had different evaluations from doctors, psychiatrists, and stuff like that. This was for a mental health condition. This was way before 2020. And I also got help from social support. So I had a social worker who helped me with my applications because I really struggled to do them by myself. My social worker helped me with all kinds of attachments and making sure that I get to the appointments and I say the right things and so on. I also, in Finland, I also had to go through this kind of like a special assessment, which was the third party assessment center. It was supposed to last for full 5 days. I was able to last there for 2 hours to go with my social worker. And after that, it was pretty much easy peasy. I got the disability benefits rather shortly after that, but it took years of battle. And first, they actually declined my disability benefits and support entirely, and I threatened to take it to tribunal, and I took all the possible actions like third-party assessment and had somebody else to help me with my applications and so on. That was actually, crucially important for me. I don't think I would have gotten any of the benefits that I got back then, the therapy and also financial support, if it wasn't because of the team that I had, the various of psychiatrists, doctors, social workers, all the support groups, multiple therapists, hospitals, and so on. So, yeah, I had an amazing team. I wouldn't have gotten any benefits without that. But it might be different in the US. So, Brian, I'll give it to you.
I think that was really nice that you shared that, and the challenges are like parallel. My thought on this, Philip, to answer the question and connect back to our conversation with Salla, is that um, I encourage people to take ownership, and I encourage them to have the man or woman in the mirror conversation with themselves. And that conversation is, can I work full time, um, a job? Can I do it? And if the answer is no, you got to be straight up with yourself, then take the doctor out of it. Because there's some doctors that are not going to support you. It's just the way it is. Doesn't mean that you don't qualify. It's just they don't understand the disability process, the system. Maybe they have a political view, whatever it is, but you're the only one that knows you. So ask yourself, look straight in the mirror, and then start like this whole rebranding process. Like, I am no longer able to work. Okay, so then we go through the steps that we outlined, and then find, like Salla did, find people that can help you. Of course, we encourage you to come to us because we do it really well in helping you understand what you need to prove and how to get through the process and all of that. But get the answers, figure out what you need to prove, what steps you need to take so you can efficiently get through the process and avoid all the delays and the mental exhaustion that many people get. That's my direction on that.
Good advice. I 100% agree on that. And that was my experience as well back then when I applied for disability benefits in Finland.
Yeah. I mean, you would love to work full time, right? Like most do. Yeah. So there's this whole mystique out there about, oh, people are, maybe they call it on the dole in the UK. Is that what they call it? I've heard that before. Like on benefits on the dole, whatever. But it doesn't happen here. It's real. I mean, most people that come through here at the Disability Digest, they're hardworking people. It just, unfortunately, life events have, had something's happened.
Yeah.
All right, Philip, back to you. Or is that it?
That was it. I'll turn it over to Nadine if she's got questions.
All right.
Thank you so much for asking the questions from your group, Philip. And before I ask Salla and Brian the questions that we have here from the audience, I just want to personally say thank you to Salla for sharing her story. She is an inspiration. And my biggest takeaway from her is that we should be focusing on what we can do than trying to pry over the things that we can't do. Like, you might not have lemons to make lemonade, but you might be missing on the apples that is already in front of you and make an apple pie, right? So,
Yes, exactly. Well said.
yeah. All right. So, we have questions here from our YouTube audience. First question: how do you ensure when you hire someone on disability that their work history would not be used against them to discontinue their disability payments?
Hmm, that is a good question. So if you're on disability benefits, there are certain restrictions. Well, we are based in the UK, so I bet it's the same for you.
Yeah.
How many hours you are allowed to work. So that's something that we have to check if that's, dictated in the conditions, because you might get like a partial payment, maybe you get full-time payment and so on. So they have different quotas of how many hours you are allowed to work, and then it's just really like tracking and ensuring that they are not exceeding that time. We have internal recommendations anyway for the length of the working day, which should be 5 hours and absolute maximum 6.5 hours a day, because I believe that we cannot, especially if you have some kind of condition, neurodiverse or whatever, you cannot keep pushing yourself 8 hours a day. That's just weird concept to me. So we have already certain limitations internally in place how many hours you are allowed to work. But if you're on benefits, then we have to check on how many hours you are allowed to work per week, per month.
Is there a money component to it, so like, does it matter how much money they make in that time?
That I'm not entirely sure about. So we have one person who is getting benefits, and they are located in Finland, so it's a bit different. So
Okay.
for them, it's tied to earnings for sure. So they're not allowed to earn more than X amount. But in UK, I think it's hourly based. I might be mistaken, but that's like at least my understanding. There are certain limitation. It might be tied to some money limit as well.
So regardless if they're able-bodied or not, you have a 6.5 hour day work criteria.
Yeah, so that's absolute maximum. Our recommendation is 5 hours.
Wow. All right. I like it. And that's every day, or do you have like here we have Fridays. We don't work on Fridays. Most don't anyway. But
So the recommendations is 5 hours per day, Monday to Friday, but that is if you do work in same kind of like a 9 to 5 type of schedule. And you can, however, arrange the hours however you see fit. Maybe someday you do 6 hours and then you take another day off or so on. So it's really highly flexible. As I mentioned, sometimes I do some of my work in the evening and some of work in the morning. Sometimes I don't work at all on one day and another day I work. So it's really the importance, it's important that we keep it as flexible as possible. We only have a reserved slot for meetings, which are, if we have meetings, they're happening between certain days and certain times, and then everybody will get notification early enough of that. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, I don't care when do you do your work, where do you work from. That doesn't matter. The only thing I care for is that you know, get your work done, and if not, you are able to communicate about that, so it can be always arranged.
Yeah, there's, I expect a lot of listeners out there jumping up and down saying, I want in.
I'm sure.
No, it's a way to do it for sure. All right. Thank you. Nadine?
Okay. Next question. How do you know the difference between needing rest and using your condition as an excuse, sorry, to avoid moving forward?
Honest answer, you always don't know, especially at first. You really don't know. But I think there is still like a difference. So avoidance tends to lead to anxiety that I'm not doing something. You know, I start feeling anxious that I'm not doing it. And the real fatigue or pain feels like my body has literally just stopped cooperating or working entirely. And there's like a drastic difference. Obviously, you know, fatigue and not being able to do stuff can still lead to anxiety, but over the time you will learn that difference. Again, the data collection here helps. So if you are able to track your energy and the tasks that you do, you will start noticing patterns eventually. So if you find yourself constantly avoiding one specific thing, like putting the laundry away from the chair we everybody have, all of us have in the bedroom, you know, um, but somehow you manage everything else, that's maybe worth noticing. So, you know, be curious about it. Don't be harsh. So, yeah, in the time you will learn the difference, whether it's avoidance or whether it's like,
Yeah.
is this actually my condition? Yeah.
So that's where having the list actually helps.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
All right, next question. What are some signs that someone is making progress, even if they don't feel like they're moving forward?
Mm.
I I love this question. This is super important, and I love reflecting on this every now and then myself too, because it's super important with my condition especially. But a few ideas. So you use a skill that you've forgotten that you had. For example, I went back into reading books, reading as much as possible again, because I used to do that when I was younger. So using a skill that you've forgotten you had, it could be a hobby that you get back to, that you are still able to do, and asking for help, and it didn't feel like overwhelming or embarrassing or anything. That's a huge sign of progress, because I know how difficult it can be sometimes to ask for help. Um, it can be maybe that you cancel something and rested, chose to rest instead without like punishing yourself for it. Because I know
Yeah.
personally how easy it is to beat yourself up for canceling things. But these things happen, even if you are able-bodied, like maybe you get a headache or something happens, your kid gets sick or something and you have to cancel, right? So these things happen. So be gentle about it. Um, yeah, so a few ideas. And maybe lastly is that you tolerated a hard day without losing, you know, who you are as a person. So you still pick out those lists. I keep going back to back to the list. So you still pick out the list. And even if I had a hard day, I'm still kind, curious, and I keep on trying because I want to make the world better place, or I want to be able to go on those walks in the nature or whatever it is. So a few ideas. So the progress, especially with chronic illness, is not linear. It's not like, you start from the bottom and then you'll just progressively just keep getting better and better. That's not how it looks like. It is easy to, think that's how it is, but it's only visible afterwards, like retrospectively. So you look back like 3 months, and in my case I look back like 6 years, and I'm like, there's a huge difference who I am as a person today where I was like as a 6 years ago. So trust the progress, trust the data. That's why diary keeping and the list keeping it is incredibly helpful for you as well, personally, not just for your doctors or disability benefits or anything like that, but to see that you are progressing, even if it doesn't look like that or feel like that.
Dang, that's great.
I like that. Trust the progress, trust the data.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why.
Yeah.
All right. Another question here. If you could give one piece of advice to someone whose health changed their life 5 years ago and they still feel stuck, what would it be?
Mm. Mm.
Hmm. Really have to think about that. If I was still there where I was 6 years ago, um, I would definitely go back to what I just said, that, track, good things and what has been good. Enjoy little things in life. My dad actually gave me this advice a very long time. It was written on my 16th birthday card, that happiness consists of little pieces, not the big ones. So I think that is something that has still stuck with me, and especially after I got ill, is that, learn to appreciate little things. I know it is very difficult, especially if you have struggled for a really, really long time. But I personally believe that within repetition, you're able to find some things in your life that keep you going, that give you energy, give you joy, and so on. So use those. That's what I would say to myself 5 years ago, or if what I would say to myself if I was still in the stage where I was. So little by little, really baby steps, small steps, enjoy the little things, enjoy the little wins, which are really, little things that make the life worthwhile. And after I got sick, I realized how many things I take it for granted. Like I became, like, I would say, more sensitive than I was before. So I truly learned to embrace those little things. And I put a lot of effort in taking everything in, like how does the tea taste? What kind of notes I can notice? How does it smell? Like those kind of like little things. And learned to feel joy from those things and be grateful for those things alone. That helped me to survive, and still does help me to survive, even if times are tough. So, little by little, take your time. Do not compare yourself to others or who you used to be. Um, I think that would be my advice for somebody who's been stuck. Don't beat yourself up, like Nadine, you said beautifully that if you are asked to make lemonade, maybe you don't have those lemons, but maybe you can make apple pie. So, change your
Yeah.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right. Okay. The next question that I have here, you might have already shared a bit about this earlier when you shared your story, but just to give emphasis on this, did goals play a role in your recovery and rebuilding process? And if so, how did you set them? How did you track them and stayed motivated when
Ooh, good one.
progress was slow? And what advice would you give someone with a chronic condition who wants to move forward, but they're not sure where to start?
Yeah, so I would say that the most important thing is to learn to be graceful because you're gonna go back and forth a lot with your goals and progresses. Like there was a time at the early stages, after a few years, like I would say 23-ish or something like that, I was able to go to gym again. And I had a huge ambitions that, oh, I'm going to build a daily routine and whatnot. And then I was like, okay, maybe slow down. Maybe I'll do 3 times a week first, right? And I was hugely disappointed because there was a major setback in my health. I started to have those kind of like fainting spells again, and I had to stop going to gym overall. Like it was really awful. I felt like beaten up. But I was able to still do something while I was not able to go to gym. I was able to go to short walks. I was able to do home workouts, which I really enjoyed. So I got like a kettlebell, for example, and so I was able to do some exercises from bed even. Um, so like do just like a little bit. I'm still not in the shape where I was like over 6 years ago, and I don't think I ever will be, which is something that I have accepted. But I'm able to now go to gym every now and then. Sometimes I'm able to have the routine, sometimes not, and that's okay because like every day looks different, every week looks different, so you really have to learn to listen to your body. And it doesn't mean that even if you take step back or 2 steps back, it doesn't mean that you're still not making the progress. It just takes a few steps back, take a breather, learn from that. Okay, maybe with my gym routine I was too ambitious, maybe 3 times a week was not a good idea, maybe I should do 1 time a week and then slowly build from there. So don't give up if you fail, because you will fail with the goals. But the most important advice I can give anybody really is don't give up on your goals. Just adjust them. What is reasonable for me? And even if the goal is like very big, that okay, I want to be able to work part-time, you can trace it back. What steps do I need to make to get to that point where I'm able to work part-time? For example, it is, like Brian said, that I'm able to consistently keep a diary of my being that takes 1 hour of my time. That's sign one, that I'm able to do that. I'm able to work part-time. I was maybe able to take a course part-time, for example. That's another sign, or so on. But don't give up. Don't give up on home. Cut the bigger goal into smaller steps, as many steps as you possibly can, and then keep on, hopping those steps forward. And sometimes, like I said, unfortunately, it happens. You take a step back, but please don't give up on your hopes and dreams and goals.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Now, I have one last question here for you. Looking back at your own journey, was there a gradual progression from your lowest point to where you are today? What were some of those small steps that you mentioned, habits or activities that help you build confidence and capacity over time?
Journaling, reading, and I was gradually able to read more complex books, for example, and I was able to focus on them, and I was able to read them for a long time. I was able to take courses, and eventually, as I mentioned, I was able to go back to university. Um, so these things were incredibly helpful for me. And then being able to exercise in some form, because that was incredibly important to me. And with the fitness life that I used to have, also came up with meal prepping and that kind of stuff. So being able to cook again and do some sort of meal planning, that was a big thing for me. But still, to this day, even I still struggle with those things. Like there are days in week where I cannot like cook at all. I'm too exhausted. I'm too fatigued. I'm in horrible pain, and that's okay. That's why I have a pantry full of like snacks that I can I can then eat guilt free. That is allowed. Um, but yeah, like I just mentioned, the recovery or living with chronic condition is not linear. It never is. It's a horrible mess. It can be beautiful
Mm.
mess if you make it and learn to, make the best of what you have and be grateful of what you have, even when it's hard. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And I really like the idea of you mentioning that you set goals step by step, because I think it applies to everyone, not just
Yeah.
to people who have disability, but even able-bodied person. I think there's a greater risk of trying to move, a very big step forward. There's more risk of falling than taking it one step at a time, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. With a
that's
chronic,
a very great analogy. All
yeah,
right. So
and with a, yeah,
sorry,
with a
go ahead.
with a chronic condition, it's that you just have to make the steps smaller. That's the thing. Make them smaller. Even if you feel like, oh, I can do 5 steps today, but tomorrow it might not be reality. So,
Mm,
just do yourself a
Yeah.
favor, make the
mm,
steps really, really small.
mm.
All right. So, yeah, those are all the questions that I have for today. And to those of you who are still tuned in, if you have any other questions, you can still drop them in the chat. Like, there's going to be a replay after this. So, we will still do our best to answer all of your questions after this event.
Great. Back to me.
Yes, next to you.
Oh, for those of you out there, we put the prior show from Salla in the show notes. So have a look, right, Nadine? The link is in
Yep.
there? Okay.
Yep. I pinned it.
Okay, perfect. You know, we talked about, or you did anyway, gratitude and being grateful, and I'm just grateful for you coming out
Oh,
here
thank
and
you.
sharing. Yeah. And as I look at it, whoever you are out there, you're going to have a struggle. I mean, we are in our 20th year here at the Disability Digest, and thanks for Salah, all of her help. And, it may look glamorous and glorious, and there's this nice website and all that, but, even with that, we all have our struggles. I mean, there's people that we try to help, and, they don't do the right things. They don't get the benefits they're entitled to. So, I mean, it pales in comparison to the story that you heard today. But yeah, the thing is, where I'm going with this is I just encourage people to take the steps and the lessons, put them into practice, and enjoy the process. That's the biggest thing. And if you do that, right, I'm getting some nods, you'll get connected to your sense of purpose. So, and then, so I thank you very much for all this. Maybe somebody has taken some of your spoons from you, but I believe you're the best version of you that you can be. So
Thank
I
you.
thank you.
I agree. I agree. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah. And we hope to have you back.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yes, yes. And for those of you listening out there, 2 weeks from today, we have another show. So make sure you tune in. And again, much thanks for everything that you've contributed to our people here today. All right. God bless.